Hey guys, we're here at a property that we're about to buy. It's a 229 unit in Winston-Salem, and I am with my brain of the operation, Kevin Dean from Rockbridge Capital, and Andressa from The Investor, who you guys know who Andressa is. So what I want to throw out here is you've got somebody who finds opportunities like this, builds business plans. You've got somebody who implements business plans, right? And so what I thought would be fun to do is to talk about like the differences that may exist in like having to put things together and having to, having to actually make them work. Some of the frustrations I hear a lot of the time from Justin Fraser, our asset manager for DeRosa, and these two banter sometimes because Justin wants as much money as he can get to renovate a property, right? And Kevin's like, nope, you can only have but so much, right? So what do you think that the balance is from renovations to making a budget work?
Well, first of all, having specific rules within the team is super important, and really appreciating your teammate expertise and respecting that. Honestly, I don't expect everybody in my team to say yes to me. That would be a problem. But I know what I bring to the table, and I can recognize what my teammates bring to the table. It's a matter of how we can create something that works for both of us, but most important, what works for the project as a whole. It's not what I want or what he wants, it's what is best for the team. And that's what I had the opportunity to see today here. We have a very solid team that brings so much difference. The diversity is what we can really pinpoint here as one of the most important things. As your better half always say, diversify.
The real brains of the operation, right? Yeah.
She always says, diversify in the experience what you bring to the table and align on the value. So I think that's what this team is bringing to the table.
Absolutely. So Kevin, from your perspective, when it comes to putting budgets together and aligning and everything like that, you've built budgets for literally dozens of deals that have been implemented and everything like that, right? What is something that you find to be like the biggest surprise when it comes to building budgets for these types of things? That you find that the asset management team asks you for something or whatever it is, and just what's something you have to keep reminding yourself of, or a surprise when it comes to building budgets for big projects like this?
Really two things. One is payroll, and second is recurring CapEx, right? So first on the payroll, right, we could put together a great business plan. We're going to renovate all the units. We're going to add these amenities. We're going to raise rents. We're going to reduce expenses, right? But the more work you do, the more people you need to execute the business plan. So, the more aggressive of a business plan you have, probably the more people you need to make it happen, right? So you kind of have to find that balance of, do we have the right personnel, right, at the right price? Because if you want to find good people to work on your property, it's going to be more expensive, right? Yeah. So when you've got a big value-add business plan, you need to put in your budget, hey, we're going to bump the anticipated salary for this individual up to X dollars per hour instead of X dollars per hour, because this is going to be a heavy lift. We want the best people out here, right? And we don't want to go in skinny and then look back and say, we're in trouble here. So on the payroll side, I'd say that's big. And in that vein, you could have to go in heavy on payroll in the first couple years to stabilize the property. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same exact personnel, the whole business plan. If you're holding a property for 10 years, maybe the first 3 years is a huge lift, and you need to account for that. But then maybe after that, if you're running smooth, then you can dial it back a little bit, maybe move resources. And then the recurring sort of CapEx budget, you have to remember, units are going to turn over every, 12 months per unit. Sometimes people will stay for 5 years. Sometimes people will stay for 10 years. Sometimes people only stay for 1 year, right? Sometimes people just pick up in the middle of the night and decide they want to leave. And sometimes they leave a big mess behind them. So you got to factor in, hey, what does it actually cost to renovate this unit? In today's dollars, right? Factoring in everything going on in the market, and how often am I going to have to do that, right? So you may have certain properties that have more turnover than others, right? Based on the market, based on the asset class itself, the vintage, all that, the neighborhood. And I think, just being realistic with what is the business plan here? What kind of neighborhood is it? What kind of people are we trying to attract to the property? And then what is that cost going to be? So that's really where asset management comes in to help us sort of dial that in.
Yeah, because it's that real boots on the ground field experience that gets brought into the analysis, because the business plan that you write could look great on paper, but without like proof of implementation, it's
Right.
really not, it's going to go nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So you and I have shared a lot of great conversations today about when I'm looking at an improvement that I need to make and saying, okay, is this something I have to do now, later, or never, right?
Yes.
And that's interesting, Kevin, too, for your side, because it's like, okay, now this is something I have to budget for today.
Mhm.
But if it's a later expense, then we can set aside, we can do a capital expense reserve that'll, build us up to the point where I can replace that roof in the future. And if it's a never thing, it might be like, oh, these are really ugly shutters on these windows, but it's not going to put a nickel in my pocket if I replace them. So I'm just going to leave those ugly shutters because this just is what it is, right? What are your thoughts on that, and maybe examples you might have on now, later, or never type of conversations?
I think now it's all about structure issues, safety issues, things that are not by code right now. I always say watertight. All the buildings need to be watertight. Those are now non-negotiables on my books. And of course, the systems, heating and cooling, all of that needs to be functioning, right? Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, that is non-negotiable. Make sure it's functional, safe, and clean for people. Later are things that are not gonna necessarily add value at the moment. I think as an appraiser, if I come over here and I see this beautiful blue wall, accent wall, does that add value to my property? No. So it's not something that I will put money into it. And we have several other cases that it's not necessary at this moment. And for later, I don't need to put a chandelier, sparkly chandelier in every single unit. I will never do that. You don't need to paint certain things that people don't really care about
They're going to pay
whatsoever.
more money for that paint job, right?
Exactly.
Is what it is.
And in my shift, right, you might get an engineer report that might say, oh, you put this on later, but this is now, or vice versa. You put this situation as now, but I don't see the need to do it now. So we really rely on other professionals to also determine that.
Well, this is great. What you guys want to remember is there is theory, and that's what makes deals possible, is to look at something and envision what's possible with regards to, like, well, if we do this and implement things this way, this is what can happen. And that's really what creates possibility for real estate investments, is to look at an asset and find ways to tweak it. But without the reality of real implementation and the hybridization of these two conversations, you're only going to get one half of the conversation for success in your real estate business plan, whether that's for a duplex or a 229 unit apartment complex like this is. That's what we got, guys. Invest Her, Rockbridge Capital. Check these guys out. Take care, guys.